First meeting is called to order. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Moore, roll call.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mr. Hines,
Present.
Mr. Kovacic, Mr. Mitchell,
Present.
Ms. Saunders Smith,
Present.
Mr. Scott,
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Let's start off. I'm going to address the issue with Commissioner Link. Do you want to? I think we've already determined that
Yes.
he has been replaced. Am I understanding that correctly?
So, yes, you all will have a new commissioner. That new commissioner will start the next meeting, which will be in September, which will be a joint meeting that we'll talk about later. But you will have a new commissioner. Commissioner Link is no longer on the board. So,
Do we know who the new appointee is?
I don't want to speak on her first name. Last name is Smith. So
Barbara Smith.
Barbara
Smith. So when we call the roll, just listen for the right Smith. But yes, Miss Smith at this point, I believe, has not been sworn in just yet. Right, 3 Smith. So
That's a common name.
yeah,
Right, so you got 4
it's right.
over there. In one room.
But no, we will. Ms. Barbara Smith has not been sworn in yet, I believe. So she will not be at this meeting. She will be at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Roll call then.
We done.
Oh, I'm sorry. A minute. I want to go back, huh?
Go back. Call Smith again.
I'll entertain the minutes of June. For July.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Roll call.
Mr. Hines,
I'll abstain. I was not here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Finance.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Today I'm going to go over the July financial. Please note the July numbers are based on unaudited June number, so they are subject to change. We should complete audit by end of August. So once audit is final, we will adjust the July statement accordingly. For the month of July, the total asset were $1,499,332. The other receivable was $68. Capital asset at July 31st was $1,205,661. Total other assets were $16,739,634. Total asset at July 31st was $19,444,695. Total liability at July 31st were $5,217,000. This is for the revenue note from SunTrust. Total net position at July 31st were $40,227,695. For the income statement, the total operating expense for month of July were $22,930. It's mainly for the July 15th, the first interest payment for the SunTrust loan. Non-operating income were $140 for a total net decrease in net position in the amount of $22,790. The Schedule A shows the total acquisition and total investment for each property held for resale. And Schedule B shows the monthly expenses for each property. At one point is Schedule C, which is summary of the incentive grant. As you can see, we did including the $300,000 total budget for FY20. And it also shows the amount carryover from FY. Also shows the amount carry forward from FY18 and FY19. So as of July 31st, The total amount remaining to pay paid from previous one was $139,332, and the total budget for FY20 to be awarded is $300,000. And the last page is approved cash activity. And I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, just real quick, the debt service, that is actually a twice-a-year payment, correct?
Yes,
So that would take place at the beginning of the fiscal year?
Yes.
And then somewhere in the middle, I assume?
It will be July 15 and January 15.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
We'll set that for subject to audit.
Yeah.
Nominating committee.
Anthony Hines and myself, we had a lengthy conversation on potential candidates, and we are pleased to recommend Ray Smith for vice chair of EDA.
You want a second?
Second.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Smith. Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Mr. Moore, Entertainment District presentation.
Yes, sir. I want to quickly give you all an update and provide the presentation that was given to or presented to council on July 22nd. I'm going to quickly put that on the screen. Just trying to give you an update of where we are, and then we will have some further discussions in closed session later this morning. Essentially, especially for the viewers at home, and then again some of one of our new members, Ms. Saunders Smith, as well as the forthcoming Ms. Barbara Smith, you all are aware of where this property is. It's approximately just over 50 acres, almost 51 acres, directly adjacent to TCC. As you may recall, economic development staff worked on 4 potential site layouts. After looking at those layouts, it was determined that the entertainment district would be the highest and best use in this area, certainly anchored by casino gaming and the gaming complex. Thus, after that discussion on July 16th, the board passed a resolution based off that recommendation to move forward with the entertainment district. We then made the presentation to council on the 22nd. When we talk about the proposed entertainment district, when we talk about the anchor itself, the gaming and entertainment facility would also include a 3,000 space parking garage, potentially a 4-star hotel, about 30 restaurants and retail outlets. You're looking at a cinema and movie theater, and you're looking at a total of about 4,000 jobs, potentially between, again, the entertainment facility itself and then the surrounding uses. The entertainment facility itself is approximately a $550 million investment. That would be a 400,000 square foot facility, looking at about 2,000 jobs just with that facility. In that facility, again, about 15 to 20 restaurants and retail outlets, potentially a 3,000 seat performance venue, as well as 30,000 square feet of meeting space. We believe this site is the site. We know that it is the site, not only because of the presentation that was made to council and staff's due diligence, but also you all should be aware that Meister Economic Consulting came and presented to council the following Monday, and they presented their findings on this facility and this use, and their numbers were very good, very well explained. They talked not only about the benefits, but also some of the things we need to look out for when it comes to placing a facility such as this in Portsmouth. Certainly there's going to be some need for different infrastructure and things of that nature, so they brought that to our attention. The big thing is that we've always talked about, council has stressed that they would like for Portsmouth to be a destination. And we feel that you all site, the Victory Village site, is ready for that. As you can see, based off of the numbers here, just in Hampton Roads alone, you know, this MSA is about 1.7, 1.8 million people. Hampton Roads itself has 1.2 million people over 21. When you talk about destinations and you talk about casino gaming, you're really looking within a 2-hour radius. You've got 2.7 million people within an hour, 4.1 within an hour and a half. You have all the individuals in North Carolina. This is where this facility should be. And we feel like when you really materialize and everything comes to fruition, potentially, from a conceptual standpoint, it could lay out as you see here. Parking garage, entertainment facility, retail outlets on each side, cinema to your top right, a hotel. I don't know if it's going to cast a shadow just like that on TCC, but the hotel there, you can see with 264 there, with 89,000 cars a day going up and down 264, another 30,000 cars going up and down Victory Boulevard. That's a lot of traffic, a lot of people to stop and enjoy themselves, stay, have a good time. Looking more to draw people in. Certainly this is an amenity for the individuals that live in Portsmouth, for the individuals that live in Hampton Roads, but that draw is really going to be for the folks outside of the region. Kind of next steps, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but next steps, we're hoping to have the memorandum of understanding with the developer/operator within the next 60 days. We're looking at master planning and rezoning this entire property. If you recall, with the previous developers, there were specific proffers, certain items that were proffered with the rezoning. We have to remove those things to get this back to an entertainment district zoning. So we will work through that process and work towards a development agreement. Again, some of these things we will discuss later. With that, again, just want to give you a brief, and want to be clear, this rendering is a conceptual rendering. So don't think that the buildings are going to be right there. Two key takeaways, however, should be that one, we will not be doing this without your input and council's input, but two, we will also not do this without public input. So we will have at least 2 public meetings and opportunities for the public to give their thoughts on what they'd like to see there, what they'd like to have there, not necessarily how it will lay out, but where they would, what they would like to see there. So again, that was just a quick kind of overview and update. I stand for any questions that you may have this morning.
Commissioner Hines?
Yeah, I also listened to the State Council's presentations and a number of the concerns that the city councilman had about community impacts and things of that nature. So I'm not even going to go down that road, but I'm certain they're going to do their due diligence in that aspect. But naturally, I think we certainly should have enough community outreach to civic leagues and things of that nature, because there's certainly some impacts that are involved in that. But my main concern or question is from basically today's meeting to when you're saying we're going to have an agreement. It's about 7 months. And I just have to make sure that I put this concern out as a property owner, and this is all of the hurdles that have to be jumped historically have not been that fast. So is there anything we can do as a body to help, the planning and zoning and all these other individuals that have to jump all these hurdles between now and 7 months from now to do that? Is there a consultant that can help us with applications or anything of that nature to make that happen?
So
it's
a number of those
an
things
aggressive
we will discuss.
timeline.
Yeah, it's an aggressive timeline. Again, let me be clear on that timeline. That timeline is really for the property to be ready to go from a standpoint of a rezoning. This is not March 20 shovel goes into the ground, because you still have to go.
I understand that.
So, and what we're looking at is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, we will discuss the process to get to this point. I am confident in working with Mr. Baldwin and his staff that, we've kind of addressed these somewhat already and had some discussions. We understand this is an aggressive timeline. This is an aggressive project. This is not something that was done in a vacuum. This is a good 10 months of due diligence to get to this point. And we're confident that we can, if we're not hitting this timeline, be very close to this timeline. But we will discuss that later on.
It's fair enough, but I just know when you're talking about putting that much parking lot in and that much impermeable space, there's a lot of environmental pieces that go involved in that. There's a
So
lot of.
that's not, this again.
I know it's a rendering. I get that, but
And so this again is just to get your property ready. This is not site plan review. This is not none of those things, because those things will be worked out. The thought process is we can get to the memorandum of understanding with the developer / operator. We can announce who that is. They will partner with us to make sure all of this is laid out properly. But this is just master planning the overall district, not approvals of where the parking garage will go, how it will look, so on and so. That is, we are further along on that from that standpoint, because we haven't even had the legislation passed just yet. So this is just for you all's property to go from the previous use to what would be the master planning of a entertainment district. That is all. That is not approving the buildings. That is not approving the hotel and the way it will look. None of those things. This is just getting the zoning right for your property.
Keeping in mind, and I'm glad that you said that, Mr. Moore, because we don't want the public or anyone to think that this is something that's going to start or happen within the year. The referendum does not come to the end of 2020, and we're just in August. So the JLARC and what the state is doing, all of that is a process. 5 cities that are in contention right now are, just as Mr. Moore said, doing the due diligence. You members of EDA gave Mr. Moore, prior to this even becoming, and as he said, you had the 4 different opportunities to get the property to a state, so when whatever happened, that property would be ready. So this is a long process. It will be a good period of time before a shovel even reaches.
Is that
no, and I mean, again, I understand and appreciate everything you're saying there. A December timeline for all the potential uses of rezoning. I just know historically it has not hit that timeline for even some of the smaller projects. This is a pretty big project. And I just want to make sure that we're lending the resource. It's not putting fingers or anything else of that nature. It's just do we need additional resource to assist us in that process?
Well, it sounds like Commissioner Hines, that's a valid concern based on our past experiences and based on other experiences that are still here within the city. So I think the city manager and others are saying that that's not going to be an issue. So we'll see when the time comes. And we'll be able to hold them to that and go back and look at this video and say, we asked about this and everybody said it was good to go.
It's not even so much that, it's just that
No,
making
it
sure
is
you have
about accountability. And this is an issue, this is too big not to have the folks that say they can make it happen be held accountable. So if they say it's okay, then we're going to move forward.
I think speed to market is going to be pretty important here, though, if this is going to be successful.
That's kind of what that sounds like they're saying. When we went and they talked about tier 1 and tier 2 and slab ready, it sounds like they're just getting this thing slab ready. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else. Just getting the slab ready. Yes, sir, Commissioner Mitchell.
I just have one comment. This is looking a little further down the road, but are there any, should we be having some ad hoc committee that looks at how we can leverage the entertainment center with downtown so that we don't become like a one-trick pony, you just come over here for entertainment, but really leveraging our waterfront so that there's really 2 things happening simultaneously, you know?
You have to.
From a staff standpoint, if I could share, from a staff standpoint, I will tell you that we are looking at that. We're not looking at just how this affects Victory. This will affect the entire city and how things will lay out. What I would ask is if staff could have the opportunity to present to you our thoughts and findings on that, and then certainly we welcome an ad hoc committee to sit down with us and have those discussions. But if we can lay out kind of our overall master plan, if you will, for how we think this will fall into place, and we're still working on that thing.
Did we present to,
I was just going to say, Commissioner Mitchell, I think that's something that we can continue as he does that. I mean, we still have the authority to do that if
Yes.
we want to.
Yes.
And so we'll listen to what staff has to offer, and if we think that's still necessary, then we can do it. We're not prohibited from doing that. Okay. City Manager.
yes, I'm trying to think back, did we present to the EDA the Crawford Bay downtown redevelopment and that project that is ongoing simultaneously with this over here?
We did.
come?
We did. We presented that overall.
We presented
thought
the
process.
stormwater park?
Yes, we've done that a couple times, and I believe, I don't want to speak for Mr. Mitchell, but I believe what his thought process is. What will the ripple effects be from this project being here, and then how it will affect downtown with the restaurants and that already exist in our city, whether it's downtown, whether it's midtown, whether it's elsewhere. We are, just so you know, there are also studies being conducted by our consultants, Meister Economic Consulting, that will touch on those things as well. However, staff has really looked at, and we'll talk a little bit about this later this morning, but staff has really taken a kind of 30,000 foot level to say, this is going to have a lot of tentacles that touch a lot of different places. We'd like to be able to come back to you and share our thoughts on that, certainly get your feedback, and then, continue discussions from there. And that would also be a discussion with council. That's not just an EDA discussion.
Good.
I had a question.
Sure.
I know that the entertainment district we're looking at the casino being the hub of this operation. And we know there's a lot of decision making as to when or if that would happen. Are there alternate plans being looked at if the casino does not realize itself, and keeping this still up at entertainment district?
Yes. And that's why this timeline is based off of just rezoning the property and preparing it to be an entertainment district. That's regardless of whether it is anchored by a casino or not. We think that this site lends itself to be a destination in several different ways. But it also provides the best opportunity to have a successful gaming and entertainment facility because of its sheer size and access off of the interstate. But we are looking to move forward with this project regardless of whether the legislation passes or not. But we are confident that will pass.
Councilman Moody, you had something?
Thank you. I know that we've committed to impact study on the surrounding communities. I think that should also include public safety factor. But what's the timeline for that?
Meister is our consultant that's working, and Mr.
Yeah.
Ashman would be the one that probably could best answer that, since that contract is under there. Do you have any idea, Mr. Miller?
I can tell you it's underway. I don't have an end date for it, a completion date.
They are.
But it is underway?
Yes,
It's
sir.
underway.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason why I say that, I think before we open up for public discussion,
That would be-
the public needs, as well as this body and council, need to be aware of that so we can address it going into it.
Certainly.
Not being reactive.
Certainly.
It'll be before.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Anything else on that issue?
One other question. Have there been any discussion with TCC
Yes.
directly?
Yes. That's all I can say at this point.
Okay, all
Or
right.
developer that may be building out.
All right, joint meeting with PPIC, Mr. Moore?
Yes, so our next meeting is scheduled for September 17th. That meeting is our kind of annual joint meeting with PPIC that is on you all's Tuesday, but again, it's joint with PPIC. Certainly welcome any topics that you all would like to discuss. The thought process is that we would have probably the joint meeting, or have in some variation, PPIC would have their meeting, have a joint meeting, and you all could have your meeting. So please clear your calendars to have a slightly longer meeting than normal because it will be a joint meeting. When it comes to joint meetings, I would also like to say that you all, this body, was scheduled or is scheduled for a joint meeting with City Council this coming Monday evening. However, with at least one commissioner not yet being ready to come on, you have some changes as far as, chair, vice chair, so forth. We also think that at this point, it's best to hold off on the joint EDA and City Council meeting because when we get ready to, hopefully in the next 60 days, announce the developer partner, we think that would be a perfect opportunity to have a joint meeting with the EDA and City Council to recognize those individuals, have those individuals come in, answer any questions, so on and so forth. So we would like to postpone the joint EDA City Council meeting to a yet-to-be-determined date.
No later than the November meeting?
I believe we could do it later in the November meeting because, again, that'll be within the next, we hope to make the announcement in the next 60 days.
What's your pleasure, Commissioners? Okay?
I'm okay with it.
Can I ask a question? Does that mean the PPIC is not going to meet on September 24th?
Yes, that does mean PPIC will not meet on September
Thank you.
24th for the liaisons.
Okay? All right, Commissioner? Okay. All right, FIG application, Mr. Donahue, 800 Loudon Avenue. Can we do, okay,
Yeah, we're going to
do them both together?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and Council members. We have 4 local incentive program applications for your consideration this morning, and I'm going to handle them because we have, of those 4, they're essentially for 2 different property owners and operators, so I'm going to handle them together, and then if you have any questions, please interject. First 2 applications are from Portco Incorporated at 800 Loudon Avenue. They have submitted both a facade improvement grant and interior build-out grant. For those of you who are not aware, Portco is a longtime Portsmouth nonprofit organization. They are providing employment and vocational services to individuals with disabilities, and they are currently located at 800 Loudon Avenue. We received an application on July 22nd. Their total project cost is just over $100,000. They are looking to complete $49,850 of facade improvement work, which will include a new roof for the main building. They are currently operating on the 2nd floor of the facility, and they're looking to expand within the property to provide new programs and services to their clientele. They are also pursuing an interior build-out grant, and that would be for the installation of heating and air conditioning equipment on the 1st floor of the property. There is currently no air conditioning on the 1st floor in their main space, so they will be expanding into the 1st floor space to provide those additional services. These are some photos, before photos of the property showing the roof and then the interior space. And they will be putting in again, a new air conditioning system on the 1st floor. We have with us this morning Mark Wilson, who's the president and CEO of Portco, and Kate Powell, their director of development. They're also here to answer questions if you have any. But for both of the applications, they would be requesting the maximum $25,000 allowable that they would be eligible for under the program, so a combined total of $50,000 for their improvement works. Are there any questions?
Any? Mr. Adams?
First, I'd like to publicly acknowledge Mr. Donahue for staying a little late on Friday to answer some of the questions I had regarding this application. And over this weekend, I've kind of wrestled with this application on kind of a number of grounds. Facade improvement grants were initially started to eliminate blight to take away the look of an outside building and make it look a little prettier. It started out in the downtown area. We did a number of wonderful projects. You go up and down High Street, there's probably every third or fourth building we've touched in some way, fashion, or form. I don't know if this checks those boxes for me. While I certainly think that the company itself does a fine work, they're an asset to our city. I just don't know if it checks the boxes of a facade, especially with a roofing project that really is not going to make the building or the outside of the building look any better. So I say that again to thank Mr. Donahue for walking me through the particulars of this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to support this. I just don't know if it checks the boxes of improving the outside of the building. That's okay. And if maybe if staff can maybe walk me through this and a little bit more, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The thought process, certainly staff looked at the applications, and Mr. Hines is correct that the facade improvement grant does speak specifically to roofs. You know, it cannot be just the roof. The thought process is that the project that they're doing or the work that they're doing on the inside of the building is deteriorated because of the roof. So there's no need to fix the inside and leave the roof just to have it deteriorate again and waste what would be the investment that essentially EDA would be making into this building. So the thought process from an overall project, we see the importance of replacing the roof in conjunction with. Now, if this were just a roofing project, no, this would not be the case. But because this is necessitated by the fact that there's work on the inside, there's no need to fix the inside without fixing that roof. So that was the premise behind recommending approval for this application. You had a similar application out on Broad Street this time last summer, out in Port Norfolk, where an individual came in and was fixing as a part of an overall project, replacing windows, roof, everything. But it was mainly because rain was getting into the building and there's no way to secure that without fixing that roof. So that was the thought process from staff.
The question too, is the roof a bigger part of the expense? Because I did hear him say that
half of, is it $49,000 out of $100 and some thousand dollars?
The total project cost is $102,000, and it's
about half.
Essentially 50-50 between the two.
But they are
work
planning to
items.
do something to the outside exterior also? Or?
From
The roof would be the facade work, so that would be the limitation of the exterior work, and then the interior build-out would include new air conditioning systems for the first floor of the space, so that it would be conditioned. They're doing other work that is not subject to the grant. They're going to be painting and doing some other improvements inside. They're doing that through their own staffing internally, and then they will be pursuing a safety and security grant, which is an administrative process for approval that is not being brought before you this morning. So they're making other improvements to the property, but really those two items are what are subject to the applications this morning.
I guess my point is the out with facade around the building is very little of this is going to go to that. It's interior and roof. Interior.
Right.
Correct.
Subject of you all's approval is the roof and that work that is affected by said roof, including the HVAC.
So if I stand on the street, if I stand on Loudon Avenue and look at it today and I go back after all this work's completed, I won't see any difference.
Not that I'm have with us this morning.
Just to bring Don up, Mr. Hines expressed his concern about whether or not this meets the facade. Which also, I kind of agree if that's the case. But you want to say something else?
I do. I think it's pertinent to what Mr. Donahue had said regarding that they're going to use other resources to improve the facade, I would be, more, in my opinion, I would like to possibly just delay this vote and see what type of, quote, skin in the game they're putting into the exterior of this and what the potential dollar amount impact that would relate to. And maybe say, okay, if you're going to put this into it, then I can put, I'm putting this into it with either outside contracts or internal forces or whatever the case may be. I mean, I know that the work that this company does is certainly worth supporting. I just don't know if it checks the box of the facade improvement grant as it's currently written. I mean, Councilwoman Simmons brings up a good point. Is if you just drive past and you see it and it looks the same, and you know we put that type of resource into it, I think there should be some sort of visible appearance to there. And I completely understand that you should secure the building's envelope. It's one of the biggest things you should do as a building is to keep water out. So I mean, I support what staff is saying there. I just think that maybe we should see what else is going into that project. Unless, I don't know if you got any of those additional resources or in part of this application.
Well, I would share with you, the applicant is here this morning, and they could, I think, speak to the project and what they're doing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm Kate Powell. I'm the Director of Development at Portco. Thank you so much for hearing us out today. Councilwoman Simmons, you made a great point there with, you know, if I stand on the street and see it after all this work is done, will I see an improvement? And I will say that the answer is yes in regards to the roof. Because our roof is a flat roof, it not only leaks on the inside, it also damages the structure on the outside. So we have several surfaces that we just repainted and resurfaced last year that are already like peeling away and water damage because we had to jerry rig like sump pumps up and try to dump water on the side of the building. So you will see improvement, and we will stop wasting money, you know, trying to pretty up the outside and making sure that it's not it's not full of water damage and rot and all sorts of other things. It's damaging the structure from improving the roof. So it really is, you know, without this roof improvement, all the other improvements are continue to be undermined, and you know, including the IBOG. So that is the point that I would make here is this is not.
But it affects the maintenance of the outside, but the look of the outside is not going to change.
Well, I would say the look of the outside will change because when we're able to fix all of those facades again, they're not going to be re-damaged again within a couple of months. You know, we really believe that we're in the spirit of the grant here by submitting this, and we don't want to waste any of your investment, including the safety and security grant that we've asked for, because once again, those are going to be on the outside because of the nature of our roof and the damage that it is doing and the way that it damages the building. There are some of the elements that we put into the safety and security grant could also be damaged if the roof is not looked at. So that is why we submitted it the way we did.
I was just going to say, based on what I've seen and based on where it says eligible improvements and roofing is one in conjunction with other improvements, I think it meets the criteria. So I'll be strongly supportive. This is a nonprofit that works with folks with disabilities. They're in our city. They're helping people get jobs. It's a tough business. They just said that it's going to affect the facade. They're going to, after this roof is fixed, they're going to clean up the facade some more. It's going to prevent them from having to go with or continue to try to improve something that'll continue to deteriorate with a bad roof. So it seems like it fits the spirit of the grant. I think we've given grants out to folks that I thought had a weaker case, and I would be strongly in support of Portco getting this grant.
I will say that being new to the board, I have some concerns about this particular grant as well. I felt I wanted to kind of take time to look at what the board had approved in the past because I thought it was just kind of on the edge of being something that should fall under the facade grant. And I also wanted to know during this period of time, were there other businesses who had other applications, or this is just what you had received?
This is just what we received.
This is just what you received.
We bring them to the board as we receive them.
And this is the beginning of the new fiscal year, so we're kind of starting over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I'll say again is on the eligible improvements, check all that apply. Roofing is on there as one of the eligible improvements. So I would just be careful about us determining that that's not eligible when it certainly is. It says in conjunction with other improvements.
Yeah, and I think everybody's point, I kind of agree with them too, is that we want to see some output. Like Councilman Simmons said, outward appearance. And I guess what are they saying, that this has to be done in order for them to improve. They're planning to do some work on the outside also.
Both outside and interior work. There's a substantial amount of interior work that will be done as well.
So this is going to help make that happen.
That's correct.
Make that easier, less of a burden.
Correct.
Okay.
Because if you do, the thought process is if you just do the inside,
It's going to be back like it
it will
was.
be right back to where it was, where it's just leaking on the inside. So
It's kind of connected.
it's connected in that way. So,
Or they find resources from another source.
I'm sorry.
I said, or they find resources from another source for their roofing project
Certainly.
and use the EDA resources for their interior build-out.
Certainly.
Are you asking that? Are you saying that?
No, that's a fact. Whether you approve this or not doesn't tell them whether they can or can't do the project.
Correct.
Okay.
That's their decision,
Okay.
not this board, yeah.
Trying to make it clear what you.
Yeah, no. I just meant if you said no to one or both of these requests, I'm sure they will go somewhere else looking for funding so that they can complete their project.
Or out of the city. The question that I have is there a, I want to support this. I'm looking for every reason to support this. But I, like the councilwoman and my colleagues, is it a reasonable request to maybe say, can we put some paint on the building in conjunction with this project to at least make this thing look like we touched this? Is it a reasonable request of the applicant to ask that question?
Make them do that.
I'm not saying make them, but is it just to ask them, is that something that's reasonable within a 6 months time or something of that nature? I at least want somebody to walks past this thing to say, wow, it actually looks better.
Yes, yes, we would be willing to do that.
Do we need to come back then and table it with a different plan? Do we need to just table it and come back with the next meeting and then they come back with a different plan with something more than that then?
Staff will work.
I have one other question. Is it that you have to approve both parts of this? You know, I mean, the facade improvement and then the interior build out, that's a separate different.
Sure,
those are two
Certainly. So
different votes.
you could approve today the interior build-out grant. We can get that approval done, and I think that's what Councilwoman Simmons was saying. You can do one or both or none, but you could approve the interior build-out, and then if you wanted to table the other one for another month while staff works with them from a facade improvement grant, because they are, for all intents and purposes, separate applications, you could do that. That way, they have the interior work approved. Staff will work with them from a standpoint of the facade and bring that back in September.
Or could we just approve both of them pending you guys getting an amenable schedule and report back to the board? Because I don't want to hold the work up. That's not the intent. It's just the intent is, again, to make it look like we've kind of touched this
If we
thing.
could do that, that would be our recommendation, allow staff to work with the applicant, approve
Do I
it.
hear a motion in that?
I'm actually going to make a motion on that. The motion is to approve the application as presented with the amendment that they would work with the applicant to bring forth a schedule for other exterior improvements and
Approve
a
both
value.
applications.
Approve both applications.
So we're gonna approve both.
It's been moved in second. Roll call.
Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries with those contingents.
Mr. Smith knows what he's doing from here. I have to, I don't want to get fined in contempt by a federal judge this morning.
Yeah, that wouldn't look good for the chairman of the EDA. Thank you.
Mr. Smith has Ray Smith has the con. Come on.
So fast.
Thank you for your work, guys.
I do have one question. I remember at a previous meeting, we had a discussion in regards to approval for a fence, I believe it was, and I thought at that point we were going to go back and look at some of the guidelines. Has that process started at all?
So that's part of the ad hoc committee that yourself and Mr. Smith are on. So those are some of the things as we talk about potential changes to the program. We have some recommendations for that, for that situation and situations such as what we just had.
Okay.
Thank you for the discussion. Appreciate that.
So we ready?
Councilman Moody.
Councilman Moody?
That brings up a good point. That was actually a gate, and I thought that was in the gray area, and I think that's what led to let's revisit and perhaps rewrite the facade to expand. I think if we're strengthening Portsmouth business, you certainly can't have the exterior looking great and the inside falling apart due to weather elements.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. Right. So I would like to see it rewritten to include what the applicant is requesting. We're investing in a business, whether it's inside or outside, right, should be of no consequence as long as it's strengthening that business in our city. That's my thoughts on it.
If I could,
Business development grant kind of thing instead of just a facade.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
slash maybe facade slash building improvements,
we're just-
facility improvements.
We're really looking at, for all intents and purposes, a business investment grant.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
And that's the process. Our staff is in the middle of rewriting this and looking at better ways to utilize that $300,000 that you all have. At the end of the day, our job as staff is tax generation and job creation. I don't know how much facade improvements generate taxes. On the same token, interior build-out may or may not generate quote-unquote taxes. What will generate those taxes, however, as you stated, is the investment in the business and the opportunity for them to add additional services, add additional folks that will be working and so on and so forth. And that's how when we've looked at these applications, that's what we're looking at. I've said before, I personally am not into the beautification grants. We have to look at how does this program affect the business community in our city. Certainly we want individuals to keep their properties up, maintain their properties, so on and so forth. However, this grant should be a business investment. That's what you all are doing as a board. You are investing in businesses. So there's a business investment grant program, and that could be a number of different things. We have a number of ideas that we want to have in front of you all. And again, we've already sat down with Mr. Smith and Mr. Mitchell to set up another meeting because we think we have better ways for you all to utilize this and it be more effective. So we are working on that.
I agree with you and commend that. And I think when we moved our facade grant program to the whole city, the program, I was talking to Mr. Donahue about this, I don't think the program parameters grew with it.
No, they did not.
And this is a great time for us to, since we're looking at it for the whole city, we're looking at it as a holistic kind of thing, it's time for us to kind of change those parameters. So thank you for working on that.
And he's already asked us to look for a date on our calendar to get that process started.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, next.
The next two applications, which include a facade improvement grant and interior build-out grant, are submitted by LEK Corporation, otherwise known here in Portsmouth and throughout Hampton Roads as Bangkok Garden Restaurant. We've received an application for 301 High Street. That's the former China Garden restaurant, which has been vacant for some time. Bangkok Garden, under the LEK Corporation, has purchased the property, and they're looking to do a full renovation of the restaurant space. It is not the entire space that they purchased. It is a portion of that. They're proposing to invest $181,000 in the build-out of the restaurant itself, and they're requesting FIG assistance and interior build-out grant assistance for that. This is the facade of the property. The total amount of the facade work is $52,596. They're requesting $25,000 through the FIG program, which would be the allowable match. They're proposing exterior demolition, installation of storefront windows and doors, the extension of a parapet wall, masonry repair, lighting, and signage. This is a rendering of the completed project on the outside. Interior-wise, they're doing a full gut renovation on the property. It's currently in a state of demolition right now. That work will total $128,505. They're also requesting a $25,000 maximum grant for the interior work as well. The work will include additional demolition, wall framing, new ceilings, flooring, electrical, plumbing, vent hood, and HVAC work. This is a layout of the new restaurant that will be opening in the space. It's Bangkok Garden Noodle House, so a new offering in the downtown area. As a dining destination, they have a pretty large following throughout Hampton Road, so we're excited to see them coming downtown. They are hoping to be up and running, I believe, by year end, and we're excited about this one. Mr. Tony Goodwin is here as a representative for Bangkok Garden this morning and can answer any additional questions you may have beyond what we can assist with.
Any questions?
Can't wait.
It's a great project. It is a good project.
This is the difference of these two projects. This is so easy to see the, you know, what you get,
Right.
as opposed to a roof.
Right.
Yeah.
A business investment.
Yeah, it's a shell of a building that's been vacant and in disrepair for years that's turning into something wonderful.
Any other discussion? Or I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the two applicants and applications as presented.
A second.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay.
We have a need to go into closed session.
We do have a need to go into closed session. I think Mr. Mitchell has it.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711 for the purpose of discussing acquisition or disposition of publicly held real property interest where discussions in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding the Victory Master Plan and 3336 Victory Boulevard. I hereby move that each board member.
That's after, yep.
That's after.
Second that.
Okay. Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
We are in closed session.
I hereby move that each board member certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Roll call.
Second.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
We are in open session.
Okay, is there any other business to come before us?
This is a general question, though. Have you guys visited like some other, probably have, some other casinos and said, hey, what worked for them, what didn't work, what would you do differently if you had a
We
chance?
have done extensive due diligence on this, yes. That's all I can tell you.
We done?
Is adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.